The envelope was cream-colored and heavy, the kind they used for wedding invitations or inheritance letters. And it hadn't been there when I went up to give my speech. But there it was now, tucked neatly into the side pocket of my purse, as if someone had meant for me to find it at the very moment all eyes were on me. I hadn't noticed it until I reached in for a lip gloss, before stepping back onto the terrace of the Whitman estate, where a sea of navy blazers and wine glasses glistened under fairy lights. It was our school's annual Legacy Scholarship Gala, the kind of fundraiser where donors wore their morality like cufflinks and expected thank yous delivered with trembling voices. I had just finished telling a story about one of our students, a boy who cycled 45 minutes in the rain to school and now had a full ride to Penn State. People had clapped, some even cried, and yet, as I stood behind that podium in heels that pinched and a dress I'd borrowed from my sister-in-law, I could feel it, the burn of someone watching too closely. You ever feel that? Like your life is walking a tightrope and everyone's just waiting for the wind? Comment below if you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted most, or let us know what part of the world you're tuning in from. We love seeing where our global family is joining us from. And if this is your first time here, welcome. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss one of our true story dramas. Your support helps us bring more voices to light. Back to the story. I didn't open the envelope right away. Something about it felt sacred or cursed. I slipped it into my purse and smiled as Declan came up beside me, brushing my arm like he always did in public, polished and performative. "You were brilliant," he said, low enough for no one else to hear. "You always know how to make them cry." He kissed my temple like a man in love, and maybe once he had been. But in that moment, all I could think was, who put that letter in my bag? It wasn't until later that night, when I was standing barefoot in our kitchen, finally alone and trying to scrub off the day with a glass of almond milk and some leftovers, that I remembered it. I sat down at the counter, turned the envelope in my hands. No name, no return address. Just a wax seal in the shape of an iris, Declan's mother's favorite flower. And that's when something in me dropped. Because I hadn't seen that seal in years. Not since our wedding day, when Catherine pressed a letter into my palm and said, "This is for when you need reminding who you married." But this wasn't from her, not directly. The handwriting on the back said, in block letters, "For Claire, before she forgets who she is." My thumb hesitated before breaking the wax. What I found inside wasn't long, just 6 lines written in Declan's familiar script. But it was enough to splinter something inside me. "If the child is mine, I will do my duty. If not, you and I both know why. Tell her the truth, or I will." No greeting, no sign-off, no context, just that. I reread it 4 times. My hands started to shake. I wasn't even showing yet, only 10 weeks along, and Declan had never once questioned the pregnancy. Not to my face anyway. So who was this meant for? Me? Or someone else reading over my shoulder? I didn't sleep that night. And by morning, every cell in my body told me this was more than just a warning. It was a prelude, a quiet declaration of war. My knees actually buckled when I saw it. A printed copy of the letter, my letter, folded on the head table at the school district's annual brunch with a note in bold red Sharpie. "Is this who you're hiring to mentor teenagers?" And I knew. Right then, I'd been set up to fall. I froze in place, my hand still midair, reaching for the orange juice pitcher, while the other women at the table, the superintendent, the alumni donors, the head of PTA, all turned their eyes toward me, not with curiosity, but with that polite kind of pity that burns worse than open scorn. My vision blurred, not from tears, but from the sheer disbelief that what I thought was a private wound had been made into a press release. I could hear someone murmuring behind me. How sad. She seemed so devoted. And that's when I backed out of the room, down the hallway, all the way to the service exit, where the kitchen staff were loading up trays of fruit salad and half-eaten croissants. Have you ever been publicly humiliated for something you didn't do? Or worse, something you did, but in the wrong way? Or for the right reasons? Tell me in the comments. And if you're watching this from anywhere outside the US, we'd love to know what country you're in. We've got listeners from all over the world, and it means everything to us to have you here. And if this is your first time on the channel, don't forget to subscribe. These true stories of betrayal, justice, and personal reinvention are why we exist. Thank you for being a part of it. Back to the story. I didn't call Declan that day. I didn't even yell. What was the point? The moment that letter appeared in public, I knew exactly who had put it there. Celia, his sister. She'd been so curious the night I told her I was pregnant, offering to help with the announcement. And now I realized she'd probably snapped a photo of it that night while I was in the bathroom. But what really got me, what really snapped something inside me, wasn't just that she'd invaded my privacy or tried to discredit me. It was the fact that Declan said nothing. He didn't issue a statement, didn't call the board, didn't even text me to ask if I was okay. When I came home that evening, the first thing I saw was my suitcase, packed, zipped, and sitting neatly by the front door like a silent threat. He was upstairs, still in his shirt from brunch, sipping whiskey like it was a normal day. And when I asked what the hell he was doing, he said, "Claire, you brought this on yourself." That was it. No explosion, no yelling, just 7 words so cruel they didn't even sting at first. They just stunned. You brought this on yourself, as if I'd mailed the letter to myself, as if he hadn't written it. I asked him who told his family, his mother, his board of trustees, his colleagues, that I'd cheated, and he just shrugged. People talk. I'm not responsible for what they believe. I don't even remember sitting down. But I do remember Catherine, his mother, coming by later that night with a box of porcelain baby booties and saying, "It's best if you let Declan think right now." That's what she called it. Thinking. Not lying, not abandoning, just thinking. As if betrayal was a season he'd outgrow. I told her I was still his wife, that I was carrying his child. She stared at me like I'd just told her I shoplifted, and then muttered, "Well, we'll see about that." I couldn't breathe, couldn't even stand long enough to reach my bedroom. So I curled up on the guest room floor, next to my own suitcase, and stayed there until sunrise, when I finally realized they were going to erase me, one polite humiliation at a time. And unless I did something, they would succeed. The moment I decided I was done crying came somewhere around 2 a.m. on a Thursday, in the back seat of my own car, parked outside a closed pharmacy with a bottle of ginger ale between my legs and one shoe missing because I'd kicked it off in frustration an hour earlier, And it sounds stupid now, but the reason I stopped wasn't because I felt brave or ready or strong. It was because I looked in the rearview mirror and didn't recognize the woman staring back. Her eyes were swollen. Her hair was matted on one side. Her sweater was stained from takeout soup. And still, she was waiting for someone to come save her. I realized then that no one was coming. Not Declan, not the school board, not even justice. If I wanted to survive, not just survive, but rise, I had to stop hoping someone would hand me dignity and start rebuilding it myself. Have you ever reached a point where rock bottom wasn't even painful anymore? Just boring? Just tired? Tell me in the comments. And if you're watching this from somewhere outside the US, let us know what country you're in. We love seeing how far our stories travel. And if you're new here, welcome to the channel. Be sure to subscribe for more powerful stories of personal awakening, revenge, and rising from the ashes. Now, back to the story. That night, I started a file. Just a Google Drive folder at first, named Claire's Facts, because even saying proof felt too aggressive. I uploaded copies of my medical records, screenshots of texts, bank statements, anything I could find, before Declan locked me out of the shared accounts, which, spoiler, he did the very next morning. By Friday, I'd found the prenup file in my email, something I hadn't thought about in years. And there it was, buried in the fine print, a paternity clause marked non-enforceable under Oregon statute. He'd known it was junk, but his family pretended otherwise, parading it around like it was scripture. Still, I needed more than screenshots and pride. I needed someone who knew what they were doing. That's when I remembered Mason Reyes. We hadn't spoken in almost 7 years. Not since undergrad, when we'd spent one semester too many in the library, eating cold Chinese takeout and arguing over ethics in corporate finance. I texted him late that Friday. I expected silence, but he called. Right away. "Claire Whitman," he said, like he was reading from a file in his head. "How deep are you in?" I blinked. "Excuse me?" "How deep," he repeated, "is the quicksand? And do you want out or revenge?" I swallowed. "Both." He laughed, low, sharp, understanding. "Send me what you've got, but know this. Once we dig, we don't stop." I don't know if it was hormones or relief or both, but I cried harder than I had all week. Not because Mason was going to fix it, but because, for the first time in days, someone believed me. That weekend, while Declan posed at a fundraising golf event and Catherine was off at a church ladies' tea, Mason and I combed through documents I hadn't touched in years. We discovered Declan had been moving money, small amounts at first, then larger ones, into a secondary trust under his name only. Even more disturbing, he'd refinanced our home quietly last fall and transferred it into the Whitman Holdings account, a family LLC. "He's trying to push you out," Mason said. "Legally, emotionally, financially." The letter was step 1. I wanted to scream, but instead, I wrote, "Every night, details, memories, timelines." I didn't confront Declan, didn't mention anything. I let them think they'd crushed me. Let them believe I was too weak to fight back. Because if they knew I was watching, really watching, they'd start hiding things faster. But if they thought I was broken, they'd keep slipping. And, oh, did they slip? The photo was blurry, but damning. Me at 21, red Solo cup in hand, sitting on someone's lap at a frat party I barely remembered, mid-laugh, mid-messy hair, with a caption scrawled beneath it. Counselor, or college cliche. And it was printed out, taped to my office door when I arrived that Monday morning. Less than a week after filing a quiet restraining order request for financial manipulation. I didn't cry this time, didn't even rip the paper down. I just stared at it for a while until one of the seniors from my mentorship program walked by and peeled it off herself, muttering, "Idiots!" before sticking it in her backpack and walking me to my desk like I was made of glass. Have you ever had someone try to ruin you with the most basic version of your past? Like they thought one bad photo, one wild night, one line taken out of context could wipe out years of growth and sacrifice? Drop a comment if you've ever had your reputation questioned unfairly. And let us know where in the world you're watching from. We love hearing how far our stories reach. And if this is your first time here, welcome to our channel. Don't forget to hit subscribe for more powerful stories of betrayal, truth, and comeback. Back to the story. The Whitmans weren't just fighting dirty. They were fighting publicly. That same day, a courier arrived with a certified letter stating I had 72 hours to vacate the guest house, which they referred to as a temporary courtesy extension in official paperwork, even though I'd lived there with Declan for over 3 years. I called Mason. "They're speeding up the clock," I said. He replied, "Good. Desperate people slip faster." But slipping or not, the walls were closing in. I had one foot in legal defense mode, another in pregnancy prep mode, and neither side made room for sleep. My OB/GYN warned me I was overexerting. That stress could trigger preterm labor. But how do you de-stress when your entire life is being litigated out from under you? The final blow came during the deposition. Yes, they actually summoned me for a sworn testimony regarding Declan's trust conversion, like I was the fraud. Mason sat beside me, calm and steady, as the opposing counsel, Declan's new attorney, a smug ex-fraternity brother with a gold watch and slicked back hair, grilled me about spending habits and marital intentions. "Did you ever discuss freezing Declan's access to the joint account before the pregnancy?" "No." "Are you aware how that could appear?" "Appear to who?" I said. "To your husband," he smiled. "Or ex-husband, depending on the date of conception." That's when my stomach clenched. Not emotionally, physically. I felt it. A slow, downward pressure I couldn't ignore. I pressed a hand to my belly and took a sharp breath. Mason leaned toward me. "Claire?" he whispered. "I think it's starting," I said, my voice barely audible. "Right now?" "Right now." His chair screeched back. The opposing attorney looked up, annoyed. "Are we taking a break?" Mason's voice was a growl. "Unless you want to deliver a baby in this conference room, I suggest we wrap." I stood, or tried to, but my legs wobbled and I braced against the table. Sweat beaded down my neck. No one moved for a full 5 seconds, until one of the paralegals called 911. "We've got a client in active labor. Yes, right now." I remembered the flicker of surprise in Declan's lawyer's eyes. Not fear, not guilt, just annoyance that their strategy had been interrupted by something so inconvenient. The EMTs arrived fast. Mason rode with me in the ambulance. As the sirens blared, I clenched his hand and said through gritted teeth, "They're going to come harder after this." And he looked me dead in the eye and said, "Then let them. Because now they've made it personal." I don't remember the rest of the ride. I blacked out from pain, woke up under hospital lights, and thought, so, this is what it feels like to give birth in a war zone. The music stopped mid-note, literally. The string quartet just stopped playing when they saw me walk in with my son in my arms and Mason behind me holding a laptop. And every head in that ballroom turned like dominoes, falling in slow motion. From Declan in his press tux to Catherine at the head table with her matching sapphire necklace and earrings, to Celia standing near the silent auction table holding a champagne flute that she suddenly forgot how to swallow. I didn't speak right away. I wanted the silence to do its work, to stretch out until the discomfort burned, and then I cleared my throat, kissed the top of my baby's head, and walked straight to the mic on stage like I'd been invited. "Good evening," I said, and my voice, somehow, didn't shake. "Sorry to interrupt what looks like a lovely evening of generational wealth preservation, but I figured since this family enjoys spectacle, I'd return the favor. If you've ever imagined getting to walk into a room full of people who doubted you, lied about you, mocked you, erased you, and then lay the truth out in full, drop it like a gavel, and watch them squirm, tell me in the comments. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. Tell us where in the world you're watching from. We're building a global community of comeback stories, and your support means everything. Be sure to subscribe for more true drama, resilience, and jaw-dropping revenge. Now, back to the moment they'll never forget. "This," I said, holding up a crisp white envelope, "is a DNA test, completed independently, verified by the court, and it states with 99.97% certainty that the child I'm holding, the one your son Declan denied, abandoned, and discredited, is biologically his." A gasp rippled across the room, like someone had popped a balloon. I saw Declan blink, once, then again, but he didn't move. "And this," Mason said, stepping forward, "is a notarized copy of the house deed, proving Claire's legal co-ownership. The same house Declan illegally used as collateral for a personal loan while claiming Claire had no right to it." The audience wasn't clapping, not yet. But they were murmuring, pulling out their phones, glancing toward Catherine, who had gone statue still, her mouth slightly parted in horror. "Oh," I added casually, "and this one's my favorite." I clicked the spacebar on Mason's laptop, and over the speakers, her voice played, Catherine's voice, from the grocery store conversation I'd recorded. "The girl's definitely Mitchell's. She's got the Gordon nose and everything, but Emma was bleeding him dry. The wrong names didn't matter. The venom in her tone was unmistakable." Catherine dropped her napkin. Declan's jaw finally twitched. Celia backed away from the gift table like someone had lit it on fire. "You knew," I said slowly. "You all knew. And instead of helping a pregnant woman, your daughter-in-law, you shamed her, evicted her, and tried to erase her. You weaponized silence. You used your money, your influence, and your lies to crush me." I held up my son, who gurgled softly under the bright lights. "But this child, your grandchild, is not a secret. He's not a mistake. He's not leverage. He is mine. And no court, no trustee, no black tie gala can change that." For a second, no one breathed. Then one of the servers, a young woman near the back, whispered, "She's incredible!" Another guest clapped. Then another, and another. Declan's shoulders sagged. Catherine pushed back her chair, furious but cornered. I stepped down from the stage as Mason closed the laptop and took my hand. "Let's go," I said. "We've done what we came to do." But as I walked past Declan, he reached out, not to me, but to the baby, and whispered, "I didn't know it would go this far." I didn't stop walking. "That's the thing about truth," I said without turning around. "It always goes further than you expect." The first check Declan wrote bounced, which would have been funny if it hadn't been court-mandated child support. But I guess that's what happens when you gamble with everything and think you'll never lose. And what made it worse wasn't just that he bounced it, but that he sent it anyway with a sticky note that read, "I'm doing my best. No apology, no context, just those 4 words, like they could undo 8 months of silence and fraud and betrayal." And I remember holding that flimsy paper in my kitchen, still in pajama pants, and nursing a baby on my hip and thinking, "You're doing your best. Now?" Have you ever had someone try to make amends when the damage is already beyond repair? When the wound they caused has already scarred over and they act like it's just a paper cut? Tell me in the comments, and let us know where you're watching from too. We love hearing from every corner of the world. And if this is your first time here, welcome to our channel. Make sure to subscribe. Your support helps us bring more real-life stories of survival, truth, and justice to light. Back to the story. The court didn't buy Declan's best effort. They froze his accounts, garnished his wages, and issued a lien against the Whitman Holdings property portfolio. Celia was named in a separate ethics complaint related to asset misrepresentation. Something about forged notary stamps on the trust conversion documents. Catherine tried to play diplomat. She showed up at my new rental with a monogrammed baby blanket and a look of manufactured remorse. "We just want to be part of his life," she said, like we hadn't spent months tearing his mother apart, like we hadn't tried to rewrite history until it bled. I didn't slam the door in her face. I'm not that person. But I didn't invite her in, either. I stood in the doorway, with the smell of breast milk and burnt toast behind me. And I told her, "Being part of his life starts with acknowledging how hard you worked to erase it." She blinked like no one had ever said that to her before, then whispered, "Declan wasn't raised to handle scandal. He panicked." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so on brand it almost broke me. "Your son didn't panic," I said. "He plotted." What I didn't tell her was that I'd already closed on a modest 3-bedroom house with the money from the fraud settlement. That I'd started working part-time with a legal aid nonprofit that helps women navigate unjust divorce and financial coercion cases. That I'd spoken with a publisher about writing a short memoir, not to cash in, but to tell the truth. I didn't owe Catherine any of that, and honestly, her blank face told me she wouldn't have cared anyway. What surprised me most was how quiet the Whitmans went after the gala, like the oxygen had been sucked out of their empire and replaced with whispers. Their favorite golf club declined their renewal. Donors ghosted them. An article about their inheritance scandal ran in the local press. And while it didn't name me, it was clear enough who'd forced their hand. But none of that, not even the money or the house or the public karma, compared to what mattered most. I had full legal custody. Declan had visitation rights, but he never showed. Not once. I stopped waiting, stopped checking my phone, stopped wondering whether fatherhood would suddenly bloom in him like a late blooming flower. It didn't. And it probably never will. But every time my son reaches up and calls me Mama, every time he claps for himself after stacking blocks or curls against me during a thunderstorm, I know I gave him something better than a perfect family. I gave him a mother who never flinched when it mattered most. The sound that woke me wasn't crying. It was laughter. Light, clumsy, high-pitched, the kind that only comes from a baby who just learned that falling down can be funny. I stepped into the living room barefoot, mug of lukewarm coffee in one hand, and watched my son tumble gently onto a pile of pillows, arms flailing, eyes bright. He clapped for himself, triumphant, and for a moment, just a breath, I forgot about courtrooms and betrayal and DNA tests and trust funds. I just watched him, alive and whole, in a world I had rebuilt from ashes. Have you ever had to completely reinvent your life after someone tried to take it from you? Not with fists, but with lies, silence, and the kind of betrayal only family can deliver? If that speaks to you, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. We love hearing how far our stories reach. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Be sure to subscribe for more powerful, true life dramas about family, truth, and the triumph of spirit. Now back to our final chapter. I named him Evan James Whitman, even though no one from the Whitman family had ever asked to see him. I kept the name not out of attachment, but to make sure that one day, when people ask who he is, they'll know exactly what line he comes from and what he overcame before he could even speak. I didn't write the memoir. I lived it instead. I built a quiet life, not small, just peaceful. A little house with chipped paint and a backyard full of weeds and promise. I started hosting Sunday dinners for women in the neighborhood, going through messy divorces and custody fights. I made spreadsheets for them, gave them lists of pro bono lawyers, showed them how to create folders called facts, just like I did. Mason still checks in, mostly to send photos of his dog or sarcastic updates about the newest scandal in financial law. We never became a romance, not exactly, but there's love there. Not the kind that sweeps you off your feet, but the kind that steadies you when the floor crumbles. Sometimes that's more powerful. Catherine stopped calling. I think she thought the silence would punish me. She didn't realize silence is where I became strongest. I don't know if Declan ever tells anyone he has a son. I don't check. I don't care. He made his choice, and so did I. The story didn't end with a courtroom victory, or a social media clapback, or a viral post. It ended on a quiet Tuesday morning, with me on my knees in the grass, showing Evan how to plant tomato seeds. He stuck his little hand in the dirt, looked up at me with wonder, and said, "Mama, the earth is soft." And I smiled, because he was right. The earth, the same one I thought would bury me, had opened instead, made space for something new, for growth, for us.